Hello and welcome to Following On, a special show. I'm Jon Norman, joined by Neil Manthorp, just a couple of minutes after returning from Lord's. What date is it? 14th of June, 2025. We'll never forget that. Tattoos on the way, I'm sure. Going to just spend the next 25 minutes or so reflecting on one of the most seismic games of cricket that South Africa have ever played in any format, ever. And I can't think of a better person to really put the moment and the match into context, really. Manders, you have been following South African cricket since South African cricket existed internationally, since readmittance anyway, or readmission. I mean, where does this stand?
John, it's the first time in 27 years that they've won an ICC trophy, and some people don't even count the only one that they did win. Many people weren't born when they won it and didn't even know that it existed. It was the Wills Trophy, the Wills Knockout Trophy, held in Bangladesh in 1998, and South Africa won that. It was the precursor to what became the Champions Trophy, so it's understandable that a lot of people don't count it. There were no league games, it was straight knockout, so they only won three games. But they did win it, but that was 27 years ago. And they've been in 16 quarterfinals, semi-finals, and one final. So to win it, and there's a lot of talk about players losing interest in Test cricket. Well, it's absolute nonsense. The very best players love Test cricket. It's their preferred format. The player of the match, Aidan Markram, with that incredible 136 in the run chase in the fourth innings, was just absolutely not just unapologetic, but effervescent about the fact that Test cricket is his preferred format and how much more it means to him that South Africa's first genuine major ICC trophy is the Test mace. And he captained the T20 team in the final of the T20 World Cup last year in Barbados. And, he said that one of the motivating factors for that incredible innings was the memory of the frustration he felt sitting on the sidelines and not being able to do anything when South Africa imploded, needing 30 from 30 balls with 6 wickets in hand and lost that T20 fight. So he said, I'm not doing it. I'm not going back to the changing room. I'm going to stay out here and see the job done, which he all but did. There's 6 runs needed when he was out. But that's that. I've obviously seen quite a few epic Test innings, and Graeme Smith's 154 against England at Edgbaston, in the fourth innings as well, will always stay in my mind. But I suspect that Aidan Markram, on reflection in a couple of days' time, will probably pull alongside Graeme Smith's innings. It was just remarkable and very, very special. But the joy, of course, sorry, I'm rambling on here, but the joy of Test cricket is the twists and turns. And this one, well, you were there. I mean, you saw them. How many times did we say, "Oh, Australia finished here"? More often we said, "Oh, South Africa are finished here." But to chase, that was equaled the second highest run chase in the history of Test cricket at Lord's. And I know that conditions changed and the pitch flattened out, and South Africa had the best of them, and they admitted that. But for so many people to have said that they had an easy route to the final, didn't deserve to be there, I think are satisfied now that, boy, tickets were cheaper than England Test matches, but they were worth every single penny of every pound that anybody paid.
I thought it was terrific. I mean, I was there for the first 3 days, and I feel like I was there to watch it. I missed out. I mean, I was keeping my eye on it this morning, ferrying kids around various locations in southeast London, and I was in the car and I was thinking to myself, how is this still tense? I mean, I was feeling tense, and South Africa only needed 30 runs. It was the one over when they went. I think they hit. What was it? I think Cummins might have been hit down the ground by Bedingham, and there was another. I think they might have scored 10 in the over. I'm not sure, but it was only when they got within 18 that I think everybody kind of breathed out and thought, yeah, they're going to win. But even when there was 34 left or so, I could feel the tension just coming off the Quick Info screen on my phone. I wasn't even listening to commentary at that point. But we know why it was tense. We know why. We know why. We don't need to go into why.
Oh, we
It's
can now. We can now. No, no, it was a South Africa choking was a no-go area for many people. But it's not now because they just produced one of the great non-chokes.
unchokes. They Heimlich maneuvered themselves.
That's exactly right. You know, I mean, there were only two boundaries. So you can't quite remember how many runs were scored off a particular over. I can tell you how many runs were scored off every ball in the morning
Not
session.
many.
There were, well, there were two boundaries in the first 100 minutes, both by Markram off Pat Cummins, who of course removed Temba Bavuma very early with a
Yeah.
beauty caught behind.
It
But
was another Bavuma half century, by the way, wasn't it?
yeah, and
It was one of another priceless half Bavuma half century. You mention those quite often in your Substack columns. I mean, he has actually scored quite a few centuries, right? Fidosa's written a good piece in Crick Info, but I remember you listing just how many nuggety half centuries he produced that had turned the tide or came at really important junctures or junctions in games. Um, it, it was just another one of those, wasn't it?
yeah, and exactly. You see that, but the point about those is that there's lots of players who've scored nuggety half centuries, which were largely irrelevant and often in losing causes.
Mm,
But his 50s and 60s have come in the most difficult conditions and have
yeah,
more often than not
he's
led
a
to
great.
victories
He's a
in
Graham
low-scoring
Thorpe.
games.
He's a modern day Graham Thorpe. Do you remember when Graham Thorpe would never convert his
Yeah.
50s? But boy, oh boy, you didn't want anyone else than Thorpe game to the crease when times were tough.
Yeah, there was that innings that Thorpe played in Sri Lanka, I think, when he scored 100 with, what was it, four
Yeah.
boundaries?
No, I don't even think was it four? Was it two?
Was it,
It was
well,
ridiculous
less
anyway.
than
Yeah.
five?
Yeah, yeah. And those centuries in the 03-04 England series of West Indies were just one of those was just like might be maybe one of the most underrated hundreds of it. And of course Harmy and the bowlers took all the glory, didn't they?
Yeah.
As will happen here. Well, no, that's not quite true because Markram, of course, of that knock. Well, tell me a little bit about Markram because, of course, he came onto the scene, didn't he? And I remember listening to Michael Holding talking about him, and he's not one for hyperbole, is he? But he was like, "Who is this guy?" And then, of course, he kind of, well, he did what a lot of batters do. They reach a point. Maybe it came too easy at start, and then when the struggles came, I don't know. You tell me. Where did he go? Where is it? Where is it? Chart his career for us to this point.
Well, I don't know whether prodigy is the right word, but I mean, he was always exceptionally talented. And of course, he captained South Africa's under 19 team to the under
2014.
19 World Cup title in 2014. And he had an absolute tearaway first year in Test cricket, set the bar
Yeah,
far too high for himself.
yeah,
A naive mistake to make
yeah,
because it's really hard to live up to.
yeah,
Scored 1,000 runs, exactly 1,000 runs in his first season of Test cricket. A couple of hundreds against Australia, and the expectations were so high, and there was no allowance really given or permitted by those who unforgiving South African cricket followers who expected him to carry on this prodigious form. And he obviously had to. It's like everybody, isn't it, John? I mean, first year in international cricket, first year in county cricket. You can take a bag full of wickets, score a sack full of runs, and then people think, okay, this guy's good here and bad there, and yeah, they work you out. And so it's been an interesting journey for Markram. But a couple of years ago, South Africa went to Australia, and he was dropped from the Test team, and rightly on his record. He'd really, really struggled. and he was averaging 20 in the 6 or 7 tests before they went to Australia. They went with a severely understrength team. Markram wasn't in it, and it hurt. It really hurt him. But it's interesting. I mean, he obviously enjoys IPL, or he enjoys the financial rewards from it. But Test cricket is his thing. It's his passion. It's his what drives him. Um, and Heinrich Klaasen is his great friend. They shared an apartment together when they were trying to make their way as professional cricketers. And Klaasen's um, omission from the Test squad by coach Shukri Conrad is one of the reasons that his international retirement shocked everybody so much. And that was another reason that, Markram didn't say it publicly, but he did mention privately that, that some of these runs at least are for Classy. But he is um, organized, quiet, calm, efficient. And the interesting thing is that he's captain of the T20 team. Temba Bavuma should never have been given that position. It was a horrible hospital pass. But Bavuma is Shukri Conrad, the coach, said today, he described it very well, I thought. He said his captaincy style is leading from behind off the field and in front on the field. And Bavuma has the confidence, self-confidence, to let Aidan Markram do the talking in the Test team. But Bavuma doesn't say much. I mean, he does speak really quite well now these days, but it's not his thing. And so when it comes to a team talk at a critical stage in a Test match, Bavuma is quite happy to say, "Aids, over to you," or Source they call him. That's his nickname. So and he'll just hand over the talk to Heinrich Klaasen. Bavuma doesn't need that affirmation. He doesn't need to be seen to be the leader. He's quietly confident within himself. It's been a really difficult journey, and I'm not talking about growing up in a township, and I'm not talking about that. It's been a difficult international career, John. It was 7 years between his first Test 100 and his second. As you say, he's produced a couple of rasping hundreds since then, and in this World Test Championship cycle, he's been prodigious. I mean, he averaged 65, played massive innings to get South Africa over the line. They needed to win. They thought at least 6 out of their last 7 Test matches. They won all seven in a row. It's now 8 in a row,
Mm.
and he said he said today that he's now got something that he hopes people will remember him for, other than being a black African cricketer and South Africa's first black African captain. And that's, I mean, it was joyous, and a slightly sad reflection on the likes of me and many of the media, that continue, and not just so in South Africa, around the world. There's Temba Bavuma, South Africa's first black African captain. But as he said, I've now got something. And he said that I hope people will remember me for doing something that the country has wanted for so long. We've got some silverware. And Graeme Smith, as he famously said in 2012 when he was captain and South Africa got their hands on the Test mace for the first time, he was in the commentary box today, and he repeated that great line that he came out with in 2012 when he said, "The only problem with the mace is that you can't drink out of it."
I'm glad you mentioned Graeme Smith, because there was a bit of a strange situation, a strange moment. I don't know if it's strange or not, but just before South Africa hit the winning runs, and they did keep us waiting, didn't they? And just for a moment, we thought, are the umpires going to actually take them off the field, and they're going to have to come back in 40 minutes and hit the one run that they need to win the game? But Graeme Smith and Kevin Peterson were both down pitch side, for reasons I'm not quite sure. They were just maybe down there to do the post-match stuff, which Graeme Smith did. I don't know if KP did. And the crowd applauded. You could see the crowd applauding Graeme Smith. And I don't know, I just felt it was a bit odd. Like, first off, KP being there, was a bit was just a little bit, interesting because of course he left South Africa, and we all know that story. But Graeme Smith hasn't exactly been, I don't know. It's kind of, I think, in his quieter moments, do you think he feels he's done everything he possibly can to safeguard Test cricket in South Africa?
Oh, John, you said this was going to be easy. You said you weren't going to ask me any difficult questions. You said this would be a celebration. All right, then. I'll dig your Yorker out. No, I don't think he has, to be honest.
Mm.
I mean, he is in a very difficult situation. He's commissioner of the SA20. Before that, right? Actually, you know what? I am going to defend Graeme Smith here. He was director of cricket. He was appointed director of cricket before he became the commissioner of the SA20, and that was he thought that he knew the insides of Cricket South Africa as captain, but he really only kind of knew the surface, and that was messed up enough. When he became director of cricket, he was involved in board meetings, and he had his first sight of the finances and the real chaos of the organization of the place, and it scared him. And do you know what? People talk about SA20 saving South African cricket financially. No, what Smith did as director of cricket when South Africa were facing Cricket South Africa were facing a deficit of R1 billion. I know that's about £17.50 when you do the conversion rate, but no, R1 billion. I mean, it's a lot of money, even in pounds. Do you know what he did? He called up Sourav Ganguly, who was president of the BCCI, and with whom he has a great friendship and, well, respect, certainly, which was forged on the field. And he said, mate, we're in huge trouble. Can you send a team over here for 3 or 4 T20 internationals, which are worth $10 million, which is 180 million rand each, which would have wiped off over half of that catastrophic debt. And COVID then delayed that series, but India did eventually arrive, and they played those games last year, and belted South Africa, but that wasn't the point. So Smith's done his bit. I mean, honestly, and he does care about Test cricket, but he also cares about his role as SA20 commissioner, and he did say a couple of days ago, which made the breath in my lungs go cold, that we all know where the future of cricket is. But I think he was referring financially. But he loved Test cricket. He was passionate about it. We spent quite a bit of time together at Lord's. And I think that it was good for him to be so intimately involved in such a great Test match, because it's hard to imagine that he'd forgotten how important Test cricket is. But I mean, he's won more Test matches as captain. He's captained more Test matches than anyone else. He was a great Test cricketer, but still, I think it was good for him to be reminded of just what a good product it can be.
Will this shame Cricket South Africa into scheduling some Test matches at the end of this year?
It's just a ghastly thought, isn't it? I mean, the World Test champions are not playing a Test match
It's
at
perfect timing.
at
I
home.
mean, this was the overriding feeling, apart from just enjoying being at Lord's, where normal people in the main were there because it was normal pricing. It was like People's Day at Wimbledon, or that day at Lord's, that time when they just opened it up on day 5. I can't remember what match it was. It was just, there was excitement, there was a sense of occasion, but there was also, it was noticeable how many people weren't behind the media centre out on the nursery ground drinking champagne rather than watching the cricket. Yeah, there was a few, but nothing like an England Test match where there's hardly anybody in actually watching the game after lunch. People were there. It was a celebration. It was intense. There was an intensity to it. There was a once in a lifetime kind of feel to it. It was everything that you'd want from a cricket match, and you just think to yourself, well, if these people can turn out for a test match in England, then surely they're going to be able to turn out for a test match in South Africa, where, truth be told, mate, the last time we were in South Africa for an England test series, that crowd at the Wanderers was ridiculous.
There's so many factors to be said about that. The first is that I actually were quite a lot of people on the nursery ground, and but the thing is, there's big screens, and the
Manners,
difference.
manners. When we're commentating on England versus India, I think it might have been a while since you were over here commentating. When we're at Lord's, we'll just go and have a coffee at the back, and we'll look out. We'll look out
I
at that nursery ground,
I
nursery
know,
end,
I know. No, look, you're
and the
right.
gardens. Those what are they called?
Rose
The
gardens.
Yeah, the rose gardens. Harry, I can't remember. I went round there on day two. There was hardly anybody. There was literally hardly anybody there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Uh, you know that I don't know what the percentage is, but I'd have to say that 60% of the crowd at this test match were overtly South African supporters. I
Yeah.
wearing the replica shirts, and many of them were Springbok shirts actually, Springbok jerseys. But a lot of people have spent a lot of money and dedicated their um, you know well, burnt holes in their credit cards and to come over to South Africa. But John, just you don't underestimate the Lord's effect. Uh,
Mm.
it's a very, very
Yeah.
special thing, and
No, I get that. I
just
get
as
that.
much as like you went to the Wanderers for the first time in
Mm.
Joburg, and you thought this is an incredible stadium,
Mm.
just absolutely amazing. But to take a family of four there is a mission. I mean, there's no like efficient public transport. There's nowhere to park. It's hard. It's hard to go to a test match in South Africa. There are, safety concerns, all of those things. I don't want to overplay it at all. But so like when England fans come to South Africa in a couple of years' time, don't worry about it. I'm not trying to put you off. You stay in a nice hotel close to the ground. You can get an Uber. We've got loads of Ubers. They're safe. But this was a one-off chance of a lifetime,
Mm.
and many, many thousands of people took it. But also, there are many hundreds of thousands of South Africans who live in England and in London in particular. So the fact that there were probably 15,000 bona fide South Africans at Lord's, so that's a random number, it might have been more than that. It does not mean to say that now that the South African team are Test world champions that we can expect more than a couple of thousand in South Africa. Unfortunately, I'd love to be wrong. Gee, I'd love to be wrong.
Well, I was wrong. But and I was unsure. It's not like I came out and said anything, but I was really couldn't work out what kind of crowd would be at this test match. And I was more than pleasantly surprised on day one when, it was a bit of a battle to get up those escalators at St John's Wood, and the crowd snaked all the way back past the garage, past the Wellington Hospital. Um, and then after day one, I thought, oh, well, it's probably just that's the day. That's the day everybody wants to go to day one. And then I turned up on day two, and it did seem like the tube was a little emptier and the escalators a little easier. And the queue certainly wasn't up the road in the manner that it was. And I thought, oh, okay, yeah, it's just day one, and it'll kind of not peter out, but maybe 6 or 7 thousand, whatever. And then that wasn't the case. I'm not sure what the crowd was today, actually, but the crowd yesterday was the biggest. It seemed like there was more people on day three than on any other day. Um, and certainly the pictures I saw from Lords today looked like there was another good crowd. So I was really impressed, and also Will McPherson with his story that the World Test Championship final is going to be in London for the next
Three editions.
three editions, and the fact that there are three editions scheduled, because there was a fear that, you know, this one or maybe the next one. I think that no, next one, one in 2 years' time is in the ICC, is in the FTP, but there was a fear that maybe that would be it. So that's good. But I do think that, London is a place where you're going to get whoever is going to be in the final. You will get, good representation in the crowd, and I don't think you'll get that anywhere else in the world.
No, exactly. Absolutely right. You're completely right. And you know what's fascinating, I find totally fascinating, is that, and I've written this, and you and I have had conversations about it for years and years. The ICC they are administrators. They're, if you own a fancy restaurant, then you employ a manager, and that's what the ICC are. It's not, they don't own it. It's not like FIFA. It's not like World Rugby. They're not real administrators. They're managers. And as much as they try hard to manage, if the owner walks in and goes, "I don't like that, change it," then they have to change it or not implement it. And I don't have inside knowledge on this. I hope to gain some, but I was fascinated by that decision. And the ICC. So to put it this way, right? The ICC are an administration team, and they have made an administrative financial decision that the next three finals of the World Test Championship will be held in England. Okay, we've gone Southampton, Oval, Lords, but Lords is obviously the prime pick. But they've done it, and they've announced, and they've issued a press release to say they've made that decision on a financial basis, because exactly as you said, there is nowhere else in the world where a if not capacity, a very, very generous crowd is guaranteed. Let's say, John, let's think out the box and say, what if Sri Lanka and New Zealand reach the final?
Yeah, well, that could have actually happened, couldn't it?
Yes, I
For this
know.
one. Yeah.
Exactly. I know. But do you know what? There would still have been 20,000 people at Lords.
Yeah.
And if you
There were.
scheduled that, can you imagine?
In Ahmedabad.
The Narendra Modi Stadium in
Yeah.
Ahmedabad with the Sri Lanka New Zealand final.
I know.
So it's just to finish my point, what I'm fascinated to see is, because that Jay Shah and the BCCI said made strong noises and indications that the next final would be held in India.
Yeah.
And
What's
and
changed?
and what remains of the legitimate administrators at the ICC have said no. They've made a stand. They've actually doing some administering
I
and
don't,
not.
do you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if it's not that. I wouldn't be surprised if we'll give you this. I wonder what they're getting. I wouldn't be surprised if the conversation took place up in that box. The camera picked up Jay Shah many, many times. And who was he sitting next to? Richard Thompson, Richard
Richard
Gould.
Gould.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them just said, look at that. Look at this crowd. Look at this. This is what the World Test Championship final should all be about. The home of cricket, packed crowd, both teams represented, no matter who's there. Come on, it makes sense, Jay, doesn't it? And he went, all right, I'll give you that one, but you're going to give me, you know what, and we'll find out what that is.
Well, maybe maybe the ECB and the MCC will cede the title Home of Cricket to Eden Gardens. Would that be a fair trade-off?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
That'd work.
I hate the home of cricket thing. When
Yeah,
that flashes up, that makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't like that at all. So yeah, they can have that.
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
absolutely.
and Lords isn't my ground, as you know, so it's not like. I want to talk to you about something else, because I did say this would take 25 minutes, and we're already pushing 40, I think. Um, you know, it will be a footnote, I imagine, because it was a test match which had a five for, a six for, a nine for, 2 wickets in an over, not once, not twice, but thrice. We had a centurion. We had a team battling back from way behind in the game. Actually, we had 2 teams battling back from way behind in the game. Australia actually battled back from way behind the game twice. South Africa did it twice as well. I think it was absolutely a brilliant test match. But there's one guy that probably won't get that much mention, but I think that he should, and that's Lungi Ngidi, who I felt, not for the first time, had almost been set up to fail, and he was failing, in first innings. 8 overs, I don't have it in front of me. 8 overs, no maiders, 0 for 45, something like that. And I just felt to myself, what chance has this guy got? He has how much? And Jared actually wrote something about it as well on the day, I think. No, I can't remember what Jared wrote about it, but he did write about it. How many Red Ball wickets has Ngidi taken in the World Test Championship current cycle? And how many matches has he played? When was the last time he played one? And here we are, and it's I've lost count of the amount of selections from opposing teams. Not that they're opposing team, of course. They were both opposing teams in some regard, both away teams. And I just felt, that was a big gamble on his selection. That was, and it didn't look like it paid off in the first innings. But you know what? I don't know if South Africa win that test. And you can point to different moments and say the same thing. But I don't. That spell of bowling, late on day 2, that turns the game. That turns the game. And to see that smile on his face as he picked up those 3 wickets, that's almost like my image of the whole test match. It was absolutely glorious to see. And I feel really happy for him. And also credit to the selectors for making that call.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Dane Patterson was the conventional favourite. I mean, he's been playing for Middlesex this summer, and so Lords is his new home ground after 4 or 5 seasons at Trent Bridge. And he would have been the logical choice, particularly, given the weather on the first day. But Ngidi was listless. Very good memory, by the way. It's exactly what it was. 8 overs, none for 45 in the first innings, and that spell emphatically changed the course of the Test match.
Yeah.
I would say that there were 4 or 5 other moments which were equally emphatic. That's that was what was so glorious about the Test match.
It was a brilliant Test match.
It was, and but you're absolutely right about that spell. It was interesting. I spoke to Shukri Conrad, the coach, after the game, and that was one of the things that I mentioned. I said, "Why did you I mean, why did Temba and you decide that he would resume and bowl after the lunch break and turn that like so emphatic?" And he said everybody else was completely buggered. So I suggested to Temba that he go to Lungi and say, "You're bowling first up after lunch, and the Test match, the World Test Championship, may well hinge on your spell."
Wow, really?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, completely, because
Wow.
Lungi is very, very laconic in personality and laid back in attitude, and that's and it's often confused. Rabada's a little bit the same. It's often confused with languidity does not equal lack of effort.
Yeah.
But to put a little spark, just whatever it's different with different players. And so so Bavuma's gone to him and just laid the whole World Test Championship on him.
On his shoulders.
So yeah, so
Wow.
right,
That can
and
go one of 2 ways, can't it?
yeah, well,
But
clearly
they know
went
the
the
man.
right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the second longest spell he's bowled in his life. He
Bloody
once, 6 years ago, bowled a 10 over spell, and he's run in and bowled a 9 over spell. And, he's quite fragile. As you know, his injury record isn't great. But he's run in and apparently Bavuma has, not apparently. Okay, he didn't say it on the record, but he Ngidi has been sort of looking at him with exhausted puppy dog eyes after about 6 or 7 overs, and Bavuma's averted his gaze
hell.
and just like he's not engaging. He's bowling another one. So
I
yeah,
love
but
that.
you're dead right. You're absolutely right to pinpoint that. I mean, and of course, I may have mentioned this, but it started with the wicket of Steve Smith.
Yes, it did. And the umpire had turned it down as well, didn't he? It was,
Yeah.
as Steve Smith had turned it down as well. Uh, um, Before I let you go, just give me an idea of what it was like down on the field of play after the match had been won. I saw some photos on your Substack. I know you're down there, and obviously that's where you found out about Bavuma's inspirational, team talk to Ngidi. But who else was down there? I mean, who did you exchange knowing looks with? Who did you seek out? What did you see?
You know, I'm so in favor of the new like I grew up in, and I think in a sort of slightly unfortunate era when, the players were, it was a game for the players, and the wives and kids were, not so much involved. And this was just glorious, John. Afterwards, like, and not just the South Africans, I mean, but all of their families and their extended families, brothers, sisters. That I think Cricket South Africa must have hired a charter plane to bring everyone over. I know they didn't, but the same applied for Australia. The little Usman, the little Khwajas running around, and all the Australian kids and the wives and girlfriends on the Lord's outfield, and that wouldn't have been permitted, I think, not so long ago. So it was fabulous. Just a tremendous occasion. That was. And one of my favorite moments was when Aidan Markram, somebody was screaming for Aidan Markram to come over and say hello, and Aidan, being as responsible as he is, and he's the player of the match, said, like, it's a bit hectic, Flip, sorry, I can't. And it turned out to be an old school friend of his he hadn't seen for years, who's been living in London, working here. He held up a beer and he said, I got one of these. Uh, and Markram went, okay, I'm coming. And he charged over and shared a beer with his old schoolmate. And that was, that there was just suddenly, and Lords and the MCC, which are, and there's also the influence of the ICC as well here. I mean, the MCC, the host, the owners, and but the ICC are the patrons, if you like. So Lords just embraced all of the informality, which was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And yeah, okay. If we are wrapping up now, I'll tell you. I asked Aidan Markram and Temba Bavuma whether they would ever be the same again. It's like a bit of a heavy question. Um, and they both gave it maybe a second's thought, and both of them just said no.
Wow, really?
Mm.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow, that's making me think actually.
Yeah, I mean, it was big, John. It was big. Did
Oh,
you,
really?
if you haven't seen it, somehow try and see the interview that Graeme Smith did with Keshav
I
Maharaj.
heard it. He's
He
crying,
was
right?
sobbing.
I know.
He was
I know.
sobbing. And I mean, I've been covering cricket for 35 plus years. And yeah, I mean, I had tears in my eyes, a lump in my throat. I was trying to eat my lunch, couldn't swallow it.
Wow, that's a first.
Yeah.
When the winning moment came, were you listening to the TV comms or the radio comms, or were you just taking it all in and doing your thing?
Well, I was watching, writing, and I had the TV comms in my ear.
Did you hear Ian Smith?
Yes, of course I did. He was brilliant.
I thought it was, there's something I don't like about modern form of commentary, and you get it much more in football, or it's much more noticeable to me in football. So when the goal happens, you do get in radio as well. When the goal happens, they are calling it for highlights purposes more than for the moment. And I don't like it. And I understand it and you have to do it, but I don't like it. And so what you have is it's really, especially when it's like a 6-0 or a 7-0, you've basically got them wrapping up the game 5 or 6 times. They don't do it with the first goal, but by the third goal, the commentary style is exactly it's they're basically trying to very succinctly within 10 seconds describe the moment, describe the goal, and describe what it means, right? And that's just how it is. But I thought it was hilarious because so Ian, when you see the winning moment for the rest of our lives, it won't be Ian Smith calling it, it'll be Sean Pollock. And one of the reasons for that is Ian Smith had been given the best part of 3 overs to
Mm.
call the winning moment, but of course it took forever. And Ian Smith was in this situation where at the start of every delivery, he'd have to start making some big grandiose statement, which would hopefully lead itself into the winning run being taken. And he just must have run out of ideas. He must have done 7 or 8 build-ups to the what didn't turn out to be the winning run. And of course, once he's done one, he can't use that again. So, but it was going to be, if he called the winning moment, it would basically be his 8th best because he was used the 7 best on what should have been a caught behind, three blocks, 2 missed balls. And do you know what I mean? And I was just watching it. I was thinking, how long is he going to get? How many of these is he going to have to do before they actually score the winning run? And then in the end, it was Sean Pollock who called it, which was probably a relief to Smithy because he'd probably
And
run out
and
of ideas.
and you know what? I was listening because Sean's very understated. I've known him for a very long time as a player,
Yeah,
and we've become quite close friends as commentators. He's been commentating quite a long time now, um, and he was sort of a little perplexed. He knew exactly what the score was, right? So Ian Smith is now in the Hall of Fame for his barest of
there is
margins
some
finish
margins.
to the
Yeah,
2019 World Cup, and I thought Sean did really, really well. I mean, I
yeah,
did,
me too.
and it was as in, iconic sort of what you want from that moment. It wasn't really Sean. I mean, he's quite sort of low key, really. I mean, he's
Yeah, yeah,
not one for the big statement. In fact, he's one for the small statement. But I thought he did it really well.
yeah. I
It
agree.
wasn't, that I don't think it sort of came naturally to him. He wasn't prepared for it. He hadn't sort of thought about it as clearly Smithy had.
Not
Right,
8 times.
Smithy. Right, Smithy. You ready? You ready? And but as a broadcaster for many, a couple of decades, that you can't manufacture these things.
No,
You
no,
can
you
try,
can't. You
but
can
you
try,
can't.
yeah. I
Yeah,
know, I know of at least one football commentator who scripts everything, and you can tell he can stop doing it. Um, right,
Anyway,
we're gonna wrap
Headingley.
up.
We're up to
Well,
Headingley.
I know. I was that's how I was going to sign off. Actually, Manners. How does it feel that after one of the greatest Test matches of your long uh, experience as a broadcaster, you got another one on Friday, 5 Test series. England against India.
Okay, final word for there are still some people who don't realize this. I am English. I was born in England and I grew up well, I grew up in South Africa in my early years, but my teenage years were spent following English cricket and 81 Ashes, and so much as the last 35 years I've lived in South Africa, and my passion and regular work has been South African cricket. It is possible. It is possible to share your passion for the game, and I love Ben Stokes, and I love English cricket. And I honestly, John, I've got 5 days to process the World Test Championship, and I will do that with gusto and relish. But boy, um, honestly, I am so excited. I haven't done a 5 Test series for 20 years. Um,
Wow.
and so I'm actually, yeah, well, closer to 30 years since the last. So I'm so excited. I am so excited. And with Kohli and Rohit Sharma retirement, um, a couple of months ago, I thought Mohammed Shami might be involved, but I thought it'd be really close. And what makes it more exciting for me now is that I don't think I'm alone in thinking that England are strong favourites. And that wasn't a position a couple of months ago. I think England should be regarded as strong favourites. It's a young and exciting Indian team. I think they'll be released a little bit from the expectation of having big names in the team. Talk of Jasprit Bumrah only playing 3 of the 5 Test matches. So suddenly, whereas it was, you know, plucky Bazball England take on giants India, it's now young, largely inexperienced India hoping not to get battered by by inform England.
I disagree. I think England's bowling
I
is a
thought you
problem.
would.
And also, I've got another team, New Zealand, so I understand it. Right, we can talk more about that another day. You've done very well. How much of that beer have you drunk?
I've just finished it, and it's my first one, but there'll be more.
Right, go and have a drink with Lawrence, and I'll see you in Leeds on Wednesday. Take it easy,
Will
buddy,
do.
and thanks for joining us here on Following On.